This is Business Owners Drinking with Lawyer Humans. I'm your host, Shreya Lay, and I'm your lawyer human. I hope you pop a cold one, pour yourself something nice, and enjoy the show. Thanks. All right, cheers. Thank you for joining me, Casey.
This is a bucket list item.
Yeah.
Being on this show with you.
Yes.
This and Ellen, basically.
It's like a small step from here to Ellen, really.
And I'm not going on that show till she drinks, so I don't think she does.
I don't think she does either. This is actually pretty good.
I like it. It's very nice.
It's a nice summery beer, even though it's not really very summery outside.
Sure isn't.
No. All right, so Casey, you are awesome.
Thanks.
You have been
Stop
working a lot with sustainable businesses.
Yeah.
And helping businesses get started up and helping teach people how to create sustainable businesses. Mm-hmm. And is there anything else you want people to know about you and what you do?
No.
All right.
Yeah,
You're just
good.
Mr. Sustainable.
Yeah.
Pacific Northwest.
I don't know about that, but I do like talking about the intersection of sustainability and business.
Okay.
At both the small business level and the corporate behemoth level.
Okay. So, question, do you hate me for owning a oil and gas consulting company?
That's very connected to fracking?
Yeah.
It's the only reason I hang out with you, actually.
All right.
It is one of the things that throws people off, though, when I love talking to everybody and anything, and I think that I never really judge people right off the bat for anything like that.
Yeah.
Like, I find it way more fun to just talk to people and learn what's going on in their world and what they think about stuff. And
yeah.
I have a good knack for that too.
I had a love-hate relationship with myself for a while. So when I worked for the oil and gas industry before going to law school, when I was leaving, I was like, well, this is not for me. I believe in the environment. I want to go into environmental law. That's why I'm going to law school. I mean, at least partially. Other reasons where I didn't want to be working for someone else for the rest of my life. But then people in the oil and gas industry just kept contacting me because they were like, oh, you're in Seattle and there's nobody else who does this in Seattle or has a connection to this industry. Can I talk to you about it? And now I've kind of come to terms with it, I think.
Tell me about those terms.
Well, one, I would like to use what I'm doing with GeoBiz to eventually give back to things like solar and more sustainable energy. And I believe what we're doing could make fracking more efficient.
Sure.
So yeah, kind of maybe change things from within.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like now you're interviewing me, which is not the point of this.
That's another talent that I have.
Apparently.
Going out on coffee dates with people and then I ask them questions the whole time, and by the end of it they're like, wait, I was supposed to ask you questions.
Is that your secret?
It's not a secret, but I end up doing it all the time without trying. I don't know
where
it comes
from. What would you say are your more favorite avenues for connecting with sustainable businesses in the Seattle area?
I recently went to a happy hour that was hosted by someone from Amazon's renewable energy department.
I didn't even know they do that.
Oh my goodness. I think that Amazon, they just had this big summit at Microsoft about corporations that are purchasing or building renewable energy, and like I believe the top purchaser of renewable energy in the world perhaps is Google. Followed closely by Microsoft and Amazon. And Facebook.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So are they implementing that within their building structures, or is it that they're buying up like fields for harvesting, or?
They're doing both.
Okay.
The thing that they're, I guess, most bullish about is positioning their data centers next to places where they can build renewable energy. So Microsoft and I believe Facebook and Google and maybe even Apple too are all at this point carbon neutral.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that they're producing all their energy from renewable resources, it means they're producing some of it and purchasing the rest from renewable, RECs or some sort of credit system.
Okay.
Where they get to say that they're carbon neutral. But Microsoft, this was just a GeekWire article that came out today that was recapping this summit. Microsoft says that they basically produce or consume as much energy from their data centers and communications energy as an entire state in certain instances.
Okay.
And that's expected to just quadruple in the next decade or so.
Okay.
So they see that as a big part of their footprint, which is why they're positioning their huge data centers in places where they can put wind farms nearby or large solar fields nearby. So they've, I think they're all basically on track or targeting to get to 100% renewable energy that they've actually built and are purchasing themselves.
Interesting.
It is really interesting.
Going off the grid.
Well, I don't know if that's the plan, but they want to be essentially operating as if they weren't having an impact from all the energy they're consuming.
That's very cool.
So, but I met someone, everyone I met at this happy hour was super delightful and nice and wanted to get to know me and what I was up to. And it was a very different happy hour culture than I'd ever experienced before, which was really great. But happy hours are, of course, really wonderful. And then, ending every informational coffee date with who are the 2 other people that you think I should meet and just building a network out from there.
That's awesome. I like that segue or question.
Yes.
I think that a lot more could be done with the oil and gas companies, and I actually don't know if they are. Maybe they are, and they're just keeping it somewhat more secretive, to invest in more renewable energy sources. Because even though I don't think that we can necessarily get away from oil and gas exploration anytime soon, I still think that we could reduce our use of it.
Sure.
And I don't know how do you feel about that? I mean, because currently you're working sort of in this sustainable solar space, and so do you feel differently about that?
Well, most of the opinions or conversations I get to have about this stuff comes from my primary network of people that I work with, which is from my graduate school called Pinchot University. It used to be called Bainbridge Graduate Institute.
Yes.
And the school graduates 2 different types of people. People who want to start their own company and reinvent a new way of doing business, and people who do really well going inside large companies, including oil companies, and trying to make some good happen from within.
Right.
And so the president of our school has this famous saying of "it's all good work," which is just a way of thinking about the progress as you're moving forward instead of getting bogged down in whether it's good enough or transformative enough or is going to save the world. So if the mentality of people inside oil companies is at least shifting toward we need to do better with how we're doing our business and exploring oil and all that type of stuff, then I think that's great work.
Cool.
Yeah.
So as long as I've known you, you've been pretty entrepreneurial, and what kind of encouraged you to go down that path? Did you have people in your family that were business owners, or was it just something that you always kind of desired?
Both my parents were entrepreneurial when they were raising my sister and I, and we grew up in a family that invented their future by starting a business. And so
that's awesome.
They met in Hawaii, which is where I grew up, and they were coming out of different industries, and my mom was doing accounting for a tourist boat type of dinner cruise on Maui, and my dad was driving the boats, and then they got into construction in different ways, and then they said we could do this too, and they started a construction company on Maui, which is what they did for about 10 years before we moved to Seattle.
Cool.
And so I don't know, I think that a lot of childhood memories I have are hanging out in their office and watching them work hard, and they did a really good job of not telling us what they were doing. So going to the office on a Saturday seemed normal. Yeah. So I liked that upbringing, and they did really well for themselves in where they came from, and how much respect they got from the people that they did business with.
That's
which
awesome.
I think really prioritized that relationships over financial.
Yes. So we kind of have shifted our focus because we felt more aligned with people, I guess, running a more lifestyle business, right? As opposed to people necessarily going out and trying to get VC or private equity money. Because of that, because I think we as people prioritize relationships over necessarily like the financials. I mean, that kind of is important as well to have a business, but I think that's a kind of cool way to look at it.
Yeah, leading from a place of values instead of superficial or external goals, I think can be really important. And certainly when you are starting a business that requires some version of investment in order to get going, if you are able to have a conversation with your investors about what their values are, and you can make sure that they line up, you're probably more likely to succeed, at least from a relationship standpoint. And that doesn't mean that you couldn't bond over your values of making a lot of money. If you get that out of the way, you're probably also most likely to succeed. But when there's a clash between an entrepreneur who wants to run a lifestyle business and their investor who wants them to go big or go home, it's like, well, that's just a ticking time bomb.
So when you were a part of Community Source Capital, did you have a lot of those conversations with people about their values versus business plan and how to kind of integrate them? Or
yes, and a lot of that came from the system that we were providing, which was about getting money from your community. And we used a zero interest lending system in order for people to borrow money from people in their community. And that was one way of having a financial system that operated entirely off of values, because you took the financial incentive out of it. So for a small business in Seattle to raise 20 grand from its community, it essentially could only get money from people that cared about the business, because there would be no other reason to lend them money at zero interest. So it was a really interesting experiment in that regard. And what we ended up doing is we asked people when they lent money at zero interest why they were doing it. So we would literally slow down the transaction process, which is the thing you shouldn't do. And we said, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And people would write the nicest things about how important it was for them to have their values line up with their money in a transaction like this. And people would get repaid and they'd re-lend it again. And it's a beautiful potential operating principle for a system like finance, where people were not motivated by money, but their primary motive was the value. The non-financial value.
But, I'm also an attorney, so I think it's like beaten into us to be like extremely cynical. And it can make for a really difficult coffee date environment. Especially if the person on the other end is expecting to be asked for something, but you really just want to learn more. I don't know. The more that you can give in terms of giving people your time and just being generous and doing favors for people, perhaps, or not favors, but gifting people with your time, the more likely or the more possible it is that some of that will come back to you later on. I agree with that. I feel like that is my default nature in a lot of ways, but I just, law school definitely tries to make you a little more skeptical of situations.
As business school probably does too. A lot of the negotiation class. Right. It's like, don't tell the other person what you want.
And I'm like, but it's all that I'm thinking about, so. So what motivates you to continue being entrepreneurial or working in sustainable business? Either one or both? Are they different? Are they the same?
I like sustainability as a thing that you try to infuse into business, because it is so hard to do. And because I think it's nonstop interesting. Like, even if you don't end up working in finance or solar energy or fracking or whatever, it's always more interesting, in my opinion, to look at the sustainability challenge instead of just the regular design challenges. And I tend to find that people are really turned on by thinking about that too. So I think there's something magical in that purpose itself, that everyone can connect to it and find it intriguing.
Cool.
So I like that.
Do you have particular podcasts or books that you have read that have like greatly influenced you, or that keep you going, keep you motivated?
Well, I only really read nonfiction at this point, which is really boring, and I listen to audiobooks, books on tape, if you will. And I just finished one called Post-Capitalism.
I feel like using the term books on tape dates me.
Maybe hipsters are using it though for that reason.
Books on record. No,
books on
vinyl.
But the fact that you don't really know if there were books on vinyl,
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe that you're not that old at all.
Yeah.
You just save yourself.
I'm pretty sure there were not.
That'd be a lot of vinyls.
Yeah.
Maybe there were. Maybe like Lord of the Rings is on vinyl somewhere.
That would be hilarious. Awesome. And I would want to own that.
Yeah.
Not because I want to listen to it, but just to be like, I own the box set of Lord of the Rings on vinyl.
The crate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like audiobooks because they fit in my pocket.
Yeah.
Because I can listen to them on like 1.5 times speed, and I just then I can listen to them while I'm walking and stuff like that. So I've read books about the economy, which like this book Post-Capitalism was not necessarily like end capitalism. It was suggesting that capitalism's heyday is just over.
Right.
So it was just kind of like
so there's a
talking
new
into
evolution.
Yeah.
Coming, I guess.
Yeah, it makes the comparison between like feudalism, which moved into capitalism, and now it's like capitalism's going to move into
something else.
Something because of a whole bunch of things that takes forever to go through, but is interesting.
All right.
Yeah, so I like books like that, and then like going to events and hearing from people speak. And I guess the nice thing about the school that I'm part of is that there's always something interesting going on, and interesting people coming in and talking about what they're up to.
How did you get connected with that school? Did you just, because there aren't very many MBA programs that focus on sustainability, from what I understand.
Correct. And the ones that do are still very, very small.
Yeah.
And so it's a struggling school. It's a struggling industry because it's tough to make small schools pencil in general. But when I heard about it, I just went and visited and thought it was a really interesting program.
Yeah.
And it was surrounded by interesting people who were really just questioning a lot of business principles. I remember one of my undergraduate management classes in business school was like, the goal of the corporation is to maximize shareholder value or shareholder wealth. And I just remember hearing that and be like, what? And I wanted to question it. It didn't mean I needed it to be wrong, but I wanted to have a conversation about it, and that wasn't really an opportunity. So it's still sort of just a theory of how to run a business.
Right. Because essentially people want to break things down into metrics, and you want something that's a measurable goal. So how do you create alternative standards that are measurable for people, for a court to judge? Because essentially that's what it's for, right? Like all the legal standards. It's for if something goes wrong, and the court has to judge whether something was done correctly or not. Yeah. So.
And that's one of the fun things that we work on in finance at my hippie graduate school, if you will. It's corporate hippie.
Are shoes allowed there?
I sometimes don't wear shoes, but in general they're encouraged. Anyway, it's what we do is when we build pro formas for the hypothetical businesses that we're designing in class as an exercise, we build in extra lines in our pro formas about non-financial metrics. So as your business grows, or as sales grow, or as you employ people, what are the social or environmental metrics that you can see grow with it in the same frickin' spreadsheet as your money?
Yeah.
And so then if you're trying to make an environmental impact, then the question becomes, what's a significant or meaningful impact for the system you're trying to affect?
Okay.
And if you were trying to reduce carbon emissions in Washington State by introducing renewable energy, you'd be challenged with the question, what is significant impact? Would it be like a 10% reduction? Cool.
Yeah.
How big does your business need to get in order to achieve that 10% reduction? So you let the mission drive the business scale.
Okay.
Instead of the amorphous task that a lot of entrepreneurs face, which is like, do I go big or do I stay in my comfortable lifestyle space?
Yeah.
If you're working for something bigger or like a different mission, then that drives what you do.
All right.
Although this book, Post-Capitalism, said that that's all kind of like a stupid approach. It's kind of like, no, you're still a capitalist, so it's not going to work. So I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, but
Or not in the very long term.
Right.
Like
right.
another 50 years.
We're working with what we got, right?
We're definitely hashtag I'm with her.
It's just there's no way you can be a scientist and also a climate denier, in my opinion.
It's hard to understand.
Yeah.
But it's happening. So there is a way to be it.
I guess so. On that very positive note, perhaps we should wrap things up.
Well, what's the thing that you can't be as a lawyer?
That I can't be?
Yeah, I mean, like in that same type of, you can't be a scientist and a climate denier. What has being a lawyer made it impossible for you to be?
I don't know. In some ways, I can't be as a lawyer. I can't be a investor.
No, that's like a boring legal thing. Think like deeper than that. What are the morals that have been infused into your way of being because of this profession?
In some ways, an optimist.
Interesting.
Because as an attorney, you are asked to think of the worst case scenarios and plan for them.
Yeah.
All the time. And even though I am in many ways an optimist, you are not allowed to be that for your clients in a lot of ways. You're not allowed to be like, oh yeah, things are going to work out great. Don't worry about it. You have to
Have
be
a
like,
good day.
Yeah. Because then, if things do work out great, there's really like investing in legal services on a corporate or even estate planning platform is in a way insurance. It's like if things don't go as planned, then I have these safeguards in place.
Yeah.
Or at least I feel that way sometimes. And it can also be a platform or a structure in which to grow into, right? It can be like if and when you guys grow, then you have these things in place to help you continue to grow. But I don't know, the way that we're kind of taught to sell our services and market our services is more on the negative side, as that, well, we're going to help you if things don't go as planned.
Looking for them.
All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And if people are interested in finding this Aslan Brewing Company, this beer is actually quite good.
Where did you get it?
And apparently it's organic. At Metropolitan Market.
Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Oh, cheers.
Cheers.